Welcome to Supply Chain Talks. My name is Kristian Kaas Mortensen. I'm a Senior Director, Global Partnership and Alliances at project44. And today I'm also your host for Supply Chain Talks. project44 has hand-curated a strong partner network in order to extend and enable the best possible customer experience. During spring and early summer, we welcome you to our partner series, Supply Chain Talks. These conversations touch on current developments in global supply chains and the world of logistics. Today, we warmly welcome Mr. Sebastian Strupuleitis to Supply Chain Talks. Sebastian is a partner, Digital Supply Chain Services at Beemacs. Sebastian, I'm very happy to have you join.
Thank you very much, Kristian. I really appreciate you invited us for this session.
Great. Sebastian, perhaps supply chain visibility is one of the cool buzzwords in logistics today. And real-time data information from all involved business partners is the key to success towards a predictive supply chain. In the past, visibility was rather a competitive advantage. Now it is a must. What experiences have you had with your customers with supply chain visibility in the last few years?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree that supply chain visibility has become more and more important, right? But not only for transportation, it's also going really end to end of your supply chain. So it really starts with order entry, where you will want to track orders, because at the end of the day, this is what customers from the shippers industry is really interested in. They are not really interested in where's the truck. They are more interested in where's my stuff. How do I have to react to changes? How can I commit to my customer to really drive customer success and give the customer the best possible service they can envision, right? So real-time data there is definitely a crucial point, but it also ties back to the overall supply chain network. We just recently had a project where also P44 was providing the data for one of the CPG customers, where even though they were using the tracking data for transportation, but they want to commit to their customers when are the goods arriving. And then, of course, transportation is a crucial point of this. But on the other hand, and this is also what we see with other customers, using those data and really facilitating then more interactive planning, because this is where it all starts. You start a planning process, right? So before I can execute my shipments, just focusing on transportation, I also have to plan them. I have to create a plan, and planning is always in the center there. And then as soon as it goes into visibility, it's really important to understand what's happening in between and use this data then to feed it back to my planning processes for transportation, but also for all my other processes, such as warehouse processes, production processes, these kind of things. So if you think about an outbound scenario, it starts with the sales order that you have in your system. I want to get visibility, what I see, and how is my order moving through my supply chain. Then I start transportation planning. I start my warehouse activities and everything. Now, as soon as the truck arrives, all good, I load my truck. The truck goes on the way, and I hope it will be on time to my customer. If anything happens in between, I have to inform my customer proactively, and this is where the supply chain visibility plays a crucial part. But if I now think also about coming the truck to my site to get it loaded, there's also already an impact on the visibility, and which ties back to planning, because if I know the truck is late in arrival at my site, so I cannot even start loading as it was planned, I already have a delay there. I might have to reshuffle my warehousing plan. I definitely have an impact on my transportation plan, because the trucks get loaded later, they leave later, so I need to react to this. So supply chain visibility is definitely a crucial point in your supply chain, but you really should have a holistic view of your overall supply chain. And then from my perspective, this is really how everything ties together. And I mean, this is what we know already also from the buzzword digital twin that we are using since a couple of years now, to really build a digital twin of the real world. And then supply chain visibility is a crucial part, and it has to feed back to all my planning processes. This is what we are seeing currently in the market.
Sebastian, in Beemacs, you work with implementing SAP solutions, and your headquarters is even located in Waldorf. What would be the different paths SAP users take towards visibility these days? Because, you know, there is not just one SAP solutions.
Yeah, so SAP has, or there are different solutions out in the market in general, right? But as you said, one of our service offerings and solution offerings is definitely the new cloud solution from SAP, which is called Logistics Business Network. And then within this solution, you have the global track and trace option. This is also where our partnership really is established on, right? We know that P44 as a partner from SAP provides the data then into GTT so that we can track transportation there. So at the end of the day, when I now look at the SAP service portfolio, for us, it's really important to see what SAP has in the digital logistics area. So there are certain solutions that SAP is providing, absolutely, that we just talked about. Logistics Business Network as one of the elements, but there's also the transportation management side, which is now embedded in S4. There's the EWM, which is also embedded in S4. And of course, also all your sales and distribution processes, or even your purchasing processes. So using the digital backend where you do all your planning, feeding those data then into the cloud solutions of Logistics Business Network to have the planning data available there. That gives me the possibility to get transparency towards my supply chain. I utilize the data that I receive, for example, from P44, but also from my warehouse, from my backend systems to really match them together and have the complete transparency across my digital twin. Now, yeah, you're right. In Germany, we are established in Waldorf, but we are also operating globally. So we have an office in Spain, we have one in Portugal, we have one in the US, because not only transportation is global, so we also try to support our customers on a global scale. I think that's the same also for project44, if I correctly know. So from my perspective, transportation is global. If we now talk about ocean transports, for example, you see what happens with ocean rates and everything. Of course, it's important to understand what happens on the way there, but also to understand the impact of what's happening in the market of transportation right now gives me some feeling on how I might have to react in my supply chain. So it even starts earlier with forecasting those data, using the real-time data, analyze them and feed them always back. Because if I do this, I have a holistic view on everything. I can create maybe a better forecast based on the historical data or what is currently actual, right? But in my next contract negotiation with my carriers, with my service providers, it's my source to negotiate rate, which was already 20 years ago. But now I can also utilize the technology to really use this forecast data, create a better plan, go in contract negotiations, you know, really give detailed informations which are proven to my service providers, to my carriers, to my 3PLs to say, based on what has happened in the past, we see this is what we need from you, and I can manage my freight spend, I can manage my contracts even better, store them in the system, plan against them, and really use those data that I get out of supply chain visibility.
Sebastian, you kind of touched a little bit about ocean freight. And in a way, during 2020, with the start of COVID-19, then moving on to the Ever Given getting attention in the Suez Canal, the normally hidden supply chains are gaining more and more public attention. What are the big things that you see happening now that maybe are not in the headline? And as well, what is coming in the next 6 or 12 months? What are the customers you are engaging with talking about? What are they considering?
Mm-hmm. So what we see since the COVID-19 pandemic is customers really invested heavily in supply chain visibility, but also in production planning processes, demand planning, demand sensing, to really manage stock levels, to really have a better forecast on where do I get my raw material stuff from. Also on the purchasing side, this where customers were investing in 2020, not so much in the transportation planning side. There was a little ditch on the warehousing side, I have to say, but warehousing is already back to speed, I would say, because everyone understood I have to administrate and to orchestrate my warehousing processes. Now, having said this, looking into, let's say, 2021, 2022, I do believe that the focus of the customer will definitely also be on the transportation side. You just mentioned the Suez Canal thing, right? And I think we all know that the container shortages we are seeing right now in the market is a cost driver for nearly every company. And freight rates for ocean has been increasingly getting more and more expensive, right? So if I have a better planning there, if I use forecasts, if I manage my contracts, if I have allocations with my carriers, using all the information that I have, no matter if it comes from my forecast planning or from my real-time visibility data, I just use those data to really come up with a proper plan, create a proper plan, what it means in terms of demand for ocean containers, for trucks, depending on which mode of transport you are looking for. I can use this information, bring it into my system, make a good plan, also what it means in terms of transportation forecasting, discuss this with my carriers, with my service provider to get the right quantity, or at least the minimum quantity that I'm expected under contract, and get the commitment from my business partners. And by doing this, I can manage also my freight rates and my transportation investment, my transportation spend. So this is where I do believe there will be an investment in this year, not only on the visibility side, but also on the planning side, because whatever I want to get into execution, I have to somehow plan up front. And I think this is where the whole network comes together. And as we are all talking about networks, supply chain networks in nowadays, this is the crucial point, not looking into the silos, really see this as a holistic supply chain and how it interferes with it, others, where are the dependencies, to really understand, okay, if I have a good plan, I need to measure the execution against this or of these activities, but then also using this data that I get out of this and then adjust my plan accordingly, because this is really, if you would look into slides right now that SAPs or others are taking, it's always a circle, right? It's not, I have a plan, I execute the plan, and then it's done. It's really incremental all the time.
Sebastian, you're kind of an experienced guy. So if you look at our industry over a long time period, maybe 10 or 20 years backwards, what are the things you see that has not changed at all, and what perhaps has really changed?
So what has not changed at all, I would say, is looking into what has happened in the execution to really analyze how good are my business partners, my carriers, my 3PLs in terms of fulfilling on-time performance. And that is definitely a crucial thing. But what I do believe is what has changed is really the speed. I can remember when I started my career, I was actually working in the automotive industry on the logistics side, on the business side. And we always, I mean, automotive was always just even 20 years ago. So we were really depending on time delivery, even in the right sequence on the truck to really bring it to the production line, which also requires a proper planning. But where we were struggling with is we were always behind at that time, because typically our internal customers, the production line, they were claiming, hey, the trucks are light. We are running out of raw materials, semi-finished goods. So we have a problem in our production line, right? And then it was up to the logistics department to take the calls, call the carrier, because normally you don't have the driver's cell phone number, right? So there was a lot of time delay where I do believe with the technology we have today, and I mean, you guys are definitely knowing much more about how a carrier or communicates to your platform, right? But really using this data in real time, having the transparency, being proactive, this is definitely the movement that I'm seeing, but not only on the transportation side, really end to end, and get this visibility so that you can inform your external customers, but also your internal customers, even upfront, whenever things happen. Here's the situation. But as I feed this back into planning, I already have a mitigation strategy. How can I still fulfill your needs and drive your customer expectation so that you are still a happy customer, no matter if it's an external customer or even an internal customer like production, for example. And this is true for outbound as well as for inbound, I would say, because just think about what happened with the Suez Canal. I was on the supermarket on Saturday and I wanted to purchase a paddleboard. It was in the news and they announced we have this stuff available. But then when I went to the store and just wanted to get a paddleboard, they told me, yeah, we haven't received it because we were infected by the Suez Canal, right? So the internal customer, the stores, were unhappy because they didn't receive the goods. And me as an external customer, I was also very disappointed. And because I actually went there, I spent the time going there on a Saturday and it was a waste of time, right? So you lose the transparency, the trust from your customers if you are not fulfilling what you have committed to. So there, I think understanding those data, using them, looking into what's happening is very crucial, and then come up with a mitigation plan.
Thank you, Sebastian. And as you mentioned, customer satisfaction is number one. Last question. What is Beemacs' next move in supply chain?
Well, our next move, I would say, is really strength where we are already working in, which is the digital logistics area of SAP, but also looking into what's really happening in the market. There are other partners, right, as well. But I mean, right now we are definitely looking into SAP solutions for supply chain. This is where we are coming from. And we are doing this really from the early beginning, where TM was more or less brand new in the market, which was, you can say, yeah, let's say 2008, 2010. So we have done a lot of projects in this area. We have a strong team that is focusing on this solution, but we are also looking into the new solutions because, like you said, what has changed over the last 20 years, I think from a business perspective, there have been a lot of changes because we want to get from reactive to proactive, but also from the, let's say, IT architecture, there have been a lot of changes. Customers are really looking for the cloud solutions. They want to get faster there and everything. So absolutely, this is also for us very important to understand how can you manage the, let's say, old world on-premise together with the new world, running those processes seamlessly, building the integration aspects there with the new cloud solutions. And this is where we are coming from, where we really have a good relationship also to our partners, to our customers. And this is where we want to drive innovation in this space. And definitely for us, it's not about being, because you mentioned our office in Walldorf, it's not about being local in Germany. We are already globally, US, Portugal, Spain, but we do believe that besides those countries, it's also important to maybe look into other areas where it's getting more and more important, because at the end of the day, transportation is definitely a global thing. And yeah, we want to support our customers also on a global base, definitely.
Thank you, Sebastian, and thank you for joining this week's Supply Chain Talks. I really enjoyed talking to you, but that's also lucky because you and me, we have regular one-on-one meetings, so the conversation can always continue. So thank you for joining, and to everybody who was viewing, thank you for joining, and see you next week in the next Supply Chain Talks. Thank you, Sebastian.
Thank you, Kristian. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.